So I've talked about ghost hauntings, spirit guide hauntings, and demon hauntings, but today I'm going to talk about astral fragment hauntings. Now, astral fragments are primitive but malicious entities that take the form of animals and insects on the astral plane. These can be animals that are found or insects found on the land, the air, or in some sort of body of water, be it salt water or fresh water. And you could, if you were to look into the astral plane, you could recognize a lot of these entities and what form they've taken. But there are many that come from other planets that we do not have a living counterpart of on this planet. Now, most of the time, astral fragments are very passive because they're basically everywhere, but their only method of evolution, which requires human life force, is to wait for your natural psychic defenses to open and then attach to you. Okay, this is often known as attachment, or as I call it, astral fragment possession, because they do transcend their physical form like a demon does when they're trying to drain life force. But there are advanced astral fragments that can cause a haunting. Okay, and this is based off an experience that I had as one example. And it seems like there's three stages of this haunting. The first is when an advanced astral fragment appears. And this is, I remember one night I was trying to fall asleep and this thing jumps up onto my bed. And it felt like four legs, and my senses were trying to tell me that it was a fox. And my spirit guides later told me that's exactly what it was, a fox of a breed that we do not have a living counterpart of on this planet. And this fox began to pace in a counterclockwise direction on my bed. Every time I tried to go to sleep or take a nap, it would start at the foot of my bed, usually on the right-hand side, and then start this counterclockwise pace. And that is because it is waiting for a mate to appear. So that's the first stage. Second stage of the haunting is when a mate comes, they breed, and after 3 hours, the female, which this fox that jumped onto my bed was a female, gave birth to a brood. Not a litter, but a brood. And that is because when astral fragments are born, the advanced type, it's so primitive that they operate together in absolute unity, walk together, move together, which would suggest it was a hive mind. That's how primitive it was. There's no individuals yet. And during the second stage, they were pacing from the left to the right of my bed. And then after a few days, I remember I laid down again, and these astral fragments, these foxes, immediately ran up and started attacking this part of my brain, my head right here. And that is because life force is stored inside the head, I guess somewhere around the brain, and that's what they were trying to absorb. And they can also take life force from the deltoid, the chest, and the pelvis area. And that is the third stage of the haunting, is when these attacks begin. These attacks are unpleasant. They were licking. You can literally feel their tongues as they licked. And I even remember hearing them literally sniff around my ear like they were sniffing for life force. And that is what these foxes were doing. And after a while, it stopped from being just like three tongues in one body, which was the hive mind, to eventually three individual foxes that I could feel running up and attacking me each night. And so that's the third and final stage of the haunting. And honestly, the only way really to stop that is to turn off your psychic abilities. And sometimes, especially for someone who's a new medium, that's easier said than done. There are some remedies to provide temporary relief, and one would be using this quartz stone. I rubbed it on my head, and that caused them to stop licking, and they started sniffing, indicating that they are blinded. And so astral fragments can't see physical things, but they can see the life force in you. And a medium's life force is much more brighter. So astral fragments will try to go after mediums. They prefer mediums over your average believer in the paranormal. And you can also use holy water. You can put like a barrier on your bed of holy water. Yes, you will be sleeping in a wet bed, but you can stop the astral fragments from trying to get to you using that barrier. But in the end, you have to turn off your abilities. But that is what the haunting of an advanced form of astral fragment is like. It's very unpleasant. You can feel pain, stinging sensations, and there are even far more disturbing examples, but unfortunately, I don't think the rules of this site will allow me to go into detail because it is very disturbing. But that is one example of how astral fragments haunt.